Welcome to Diary of a Dreamer, where resilience unlocks your potential. I'm Tasha Eisinger, and each week I'll bring you powerful stories and practical insights from my own experiences and inspiring guests. Whether you're facing challenges or chasing dreams, this podcast is your go-to for motivation, building confidence, and practical tips for transforming obstacles into opportunities. Let's dive into today's episode and start turning your dreams into reality. Today, we are with Rochelle Miller, who is a Maxwell certified trainer, coach, and certified speaker. She is on a mission to guide other people to manage their finances and get financial peace of mind. So, Rochelle, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to see you today.
Thanks so much for having me, Tasha. I'm thrilled to join in and support what you're doing, and continue to get the word out about financial peace. You know, it's a big thing.
Yes, when this airs, it's going to be right before the holiday season and all of that holiday fun. So I thought it would be good timing to remind people to not lose their minds, which is kind of hard because obviously I have merchandise on my website to sell. So it's like I don't know. I might be putting myself in the
No, that'll be perfect because a lot of people go into that season with so much fear and anxiety, or they go into it without a plan. And then in January, they've got the fear and anxiety, right? So if we can help get them a plan before time, that'll be really great.
Absolutely. Life is all about balance.
Amen. Balance, harmony, so many things that you can call it, but it's definitely not about having it all together. That's
no. I mean, Rochelle, you and I have been dear friends for many years now, and we have seen each other at high points and low points. So we know it's not about keeping it all together all the time because that's completely impossible. So,
amen. The more we can preach that, I think the better the world will be.
Yes. So obviously I know a lot about your story, but I'm kind of curious about how your financial journey began. Were you always interested in money, budgeting, being wise with your finances, or was there a specific experience that flipped you over and made you reevaluate?
Yeah. So I can actually remember. So I grew up in a divorced family. My parents separated when I was in 6th grade. And with that, my mom didn't have a college degree. My dad was in the trades. And the way that they separated and the way that money worked, money was just always tight in my house. So I was always aware of money. I was always aware that we didn't have a lot. But it really, I have a specific memory of my mom sitting down at the dinner table or, at the kitchen table, and writing out the amount of money that she brought home in her paycheck and where it needed to go. So, I mean, she was budgeting right off the bat. And so that's in my brain very much so.
That's a good example too, for any parent listening. Not that kids need to know exactly where money is coming from and going, but setting that example of it's addition and subtraction. Money comes in, money goes out.
Absolutely. And having a plan, right? That's a big piece of it. But so because of that, there was always that awareness. And I always, because of growing up with not much, I never wanted to get into that place where debt consumed me and where I was living outside of my means. I had a lot of that knowledge and a lot of that language very early on. So in the midst of money and finances and numbers, not being I'm going to go become a financial planner, that was never on my list of things to do, but it was always there. It was always in the background.
Yes. So I know that when you and your husband, I don't know how many years you were married, finances, the debt did start piling up. And so I think that's important because even though you saw this example growing up,
indeed,
and you know what to do. So many of us know what to do. Like I said, it's addition and subtraction. It's not rocket science. I understand people being confused with investing, but when it comes to budgeting, it's pretty cut and dry. So we can all, especially right now with grocery prices and all of it, money's already tight for a lot of people. And so this can happen to anybody. So I know you kind of started going down a very specific path when the debt started piling up.
Right. So a quick background, my husband and I met before I went to college. We met in an internship before college and then got married while I was in college. So, kind of had a plan. We were working things out. We were working the plan. And then he wanted to go to college, which is fantastic. But as an adult now, right now we're in our mid-20s, and now he says, I want to go to college. We start moving around the country. Now we're adding on, there's 2 college debts. We're moving around the country, and we're faith-based people. So we're believing God for jobs. We're not moving with jobs. So we're moving on a whim a little bit, right? We're moving on faith, which also means that, okay, we are very much making intentional decisions financially and recognizing there will be consequences, but believing that we're going to get to a better place because of the decisions that we're making. That just simply means that it was tight for years. It was about 15 years in, right, before we really kind of finally settled. So it was when we settled. And so just to acknowledge that there will be seasons. There are going to be seasons where it's going to be harder. There's going to be seasons where it's going to be tighter. But that doesn't mean that season's going to last forever. And I think that's a key thing to remember, right? Is right now we're in a season where it's most likely tight for a lot of people. This is not going to last forever. There's things that we can do. There's ways out. So when we finally got settled, and honest to goodness, a big part of what changed for me and for us was getting settled into jobs that were going to be stable. Mm-hmm. And seeing that there was extra, not just, like, hey, let's go and buy the world, right? But going, okay, so now we've got a lot of debt because student loans are great and we're living in an apartment and we've traveled around the country. And so we've lived in ways to make things work. But now we're settled. We're going to be here a while. We're not going to change. We're not going to keep doing the different things, right? So now we can actually start to plan. Now we can actually start to work something different. And there's a little bit of extra because it was just the 2 of us. That made a difference.
When I like that you mentioned a season, and I know for some people, so there's the student loans, and then also like some people medical expenses.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And it's not just the medical, it's all the other things that you pay into to survive and function. And so it really can add up very quickly. And so I think during those seasons, like, it's important to give yourself grace and patience, knowing hopefully it's temporary. Of course, chronic illness is not temporary. So what are some simple habits that can be done during those time periods to help people not snowball with too much debt? And then how do you shift out of that season and really tackle healthy habits?
Oh man, that's a big question, because when you're in the middle of the hard, it's really hard to remember that it's not forever. So step 1 is a big mindset shift, right? And we talked about balance and harmony right off the bat, finding that place of peace where you can see that the end is not here. This is not the end. This is not my forever. This is not where I have to be. A big part of that, though, Tasha, is recognizing that we are here to partner with God and do things and take action. Life isn't just happening to us. We absolutely can jump in and be a part of the process of moving into a different solution. So I think that those 2 pieces are a big kind of part of the solution, right? Is recognizing that I'm not stuck. And if I am stuck, I have to ask for help. So I have to look at different solutions to the problem. I have to see if there's a different way of doing things. Than if something's not working, I have to see, I have to research, I have to talk and ask questions outside of my comfort zone. Because if I'm not comfortable and I don't want to be where I am forever, it's on me to make that change, right? I can't just expect the world to change for me. So simple habits are a lot of those mindset changes. Find a way to encourage yourself, find a way to have hope, find a way to have faith. If there's, those are kind of like quick things that you can do, finding your encouragement, finding your people who can walk with you through that, asking for support. So those, they sound big, but they really are the little kind of daily things that we can do. We just most often forget them because of many things in our world. But then when you can get to a point where you can either see the end in sight, or maybe things have changed enough that there's just a little bit of wiggle room. And even in those moments where you don't feel like you have wiggle room, honest to goodness, awareness is a first step. You have to start looking at where you're actually at, where the money's actually going, what's actually coming in, what's actually going out. Because if you don't know, it's really hard to make any changes if you don't know. Or if you, well, I think that I'm doing this, right? I think that I'm spending $100 on groceries every week. Dude, if you're spending $100 on groceries every week, kudos right now, honestly.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's where you have to be so honest with yourself, right? And that's really hard. That's really hard to do. It's hard to be accountable. It's hard to be honest with ourselves, especially when we're in a place of kind of fear or unknown. So that's a big kicker. That probably is what I would say the first step.
Well, I love the awareness aspect of it because it's so easy to hide and pretend, and then you create a much bigger mess.
Yes.
And there was a time period where our family, it was like, okay, so much is going out. And I do track our finances, but I started tracking it in a different way and was like, oh, this is seasonal. This is seasonal. We just got to get through this time period.
Yes.
And then we can play catch up again.
Yes.
Because that's kind of the ebbs and flows of life.
Absolutely.
And so let's say people are playing catch up. They're making some progress, as we love to do. And I'm sure there's been a time period or two where you were making progress and it felt so good, right? And then we can fall off the wagon, if you will.
You mean like when we were making really good progress on our debt and then we found a couch for sale that we really needed?
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly the thing, right?
Yeah.
It feels so good when you get momentum and you are on a path and you've got a good journey going and you're making the steps and you're walking it. Man, that feels really good. And then also FYI, maybe my car just broke down and I need a new alternator or brakes or tires because those things are costly. And if you're on that path of paying things off, you don't necessarily put things away for the what if because there's a what if. So first things first, keep in mind, none of these are failures. It is not a failure. Here's the way that I define failure. Failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. So if you take a failure and you learn from it, it's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. So in those moments, just remember it is the season. Figure that out. Make a payment for it. Make a plan for it. And then get back on track. You know, just it's such like, okay, we had like a nice little veer off and then we got to get right back on. So it's real simple, right? But we don't think about it being that simple because it's kind of like when we fall off the diet path, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, I just ate 3 pizzas and had a tub of ice cream and it was fabulous. And now I feel horrible, but I'm still really hungry. Okay, cool. Well, if you feel horrible, maybe let's make a better choice. And it's just keeping in mind one choice does not kill the next choice. And this choice over here doesn't kill this choice back over here. I get to keep making choices.
I love it. And when you were talking, I thought about, I'm going to totally age and date myself, but do you remember Mapquest?
Absolutely.
You had to print it off. You had to print it off. And then I'm terrible with directions. North is always in front of me. And so I would like get off the path and then you're like, but it doesn't tell me how to reroute.
No.
So I would be like, and then it didn't give you enough of the map to know where you were going. And so I'd have to like pull off and ask for directions to get back on track. It's just kind of like being with Mapquest.
Yes. That's exactly, I love it. That's perfect. Keep that close because that's exactly it. Just pretend that you're on Mapquest and you have to go ask for help, right? To get back on because we didn't live in a world of GPS and where everything was connected. So just pretend that you don't live in a world where everything's connected and you just have to make a new choice and get back to the path.
And for those that don't know the Mapquest reference, you can go on a search engine, choose your favorite one. read up on the pros and cons of Mapquest because we thought it was amazing at first. But I also love using humor. So like if you can have a way, let's say you get off course and you're, and you can just kind of laugh and you're like, well, this is the Mapquest. If you can have little ways to laugh and get yourself back on track, I think it usually helps too.
Absolutely. I just recently had to get us back on track because we're making some big changes. We're doing a basement remodel and, I had to it's hard, especially in this space where, here I am, I'm somebody who I'm a big proponent of being in charge and knowing where things are going. And we made a choice and we're remodeling the basement. And all of a sudden I started going, ew, and literally I'm doing the dance because that's how it feels internally. It feels ew. But I really had to sit down with myself, right? And go, it's fine. Everything's okay. Let's rework the plan, right? And go we got off course a little bit. We had a little Mapquest moment. That's totally fine. Let's rework the plan and bring it back.
And I like using pen and paper or computer, whatever it is, and making it logical.
Yes.
Because so much of money is emotional.
Yeah.
And so when you start getting the ooh or the panic or the high of it too, for some people of spending or where money's going. And of course, home projects, there's always a million surprises along the way. So when you do stuff like that, if you sit down and you look at it, pen and paper or computer, whatever it is, and make it very black and white, it takes the emotion out of it. It's not bad to feel the emotions, but if you stay there, then you can get derailed further probably.
Well, and to just piggyback on it and say it in a different way, it's the logic, but it's also the documentation. Mm-hmm. If I can have a plan in my head all day, every day, but unless somebody else knows about it, and especially if you're in a marriage and you're in a partnership, or you're just in a long-term relationship, whatever, if you're in a partnership with somebody else and your finances are combined with somebody else, I highly recommend document the plan, right? Because if it's in my brain, but I don't share it with my husband, then he's going to go do the things that he wants to do and he's going to make decisions. And I'm going to be like, excuse me, that wasn't part of the plan. And he'll be like, what plan were you talking about, woman?
Yes.
Like, I love you.
Yes, exactly. So communication is important. So I'm hearing awareness. I'm hearing communication, creating a plan and having some grace within that planning, knowing it's not set in stone. It's adjustable.
Always.
Right?
Always.
Reevaluating.
Yes.
These are things I'm hearing as you're talking. I know that you use a specific way to budget.
Yeah.
And it's a little different than other things that I've heard out there, which I love. I love learning. I don't know, we were driving home from somewhere and we talked for hours about money and finance and stuff.
Always.
So it was very interesting. I would love for you to share a little bit about what you do that's different.
Sure. So here's the thing. I use YNAB. YNAB is an app it's literally, the company is called You Need a Budget. And so that's why it's YNAB, YNAB. Go search it, go look it up. Here's the thing. YNAB works for me. But really what YNAB helped me to do was, we live in a digital world and my husband and I are digital. So it works for us because we're very digital and everything's connected. In the midst of using YNAB, and YNAB has some fantastic reports, YNAB helps you to break things down into categories. It helps you to just think about your money in a way of not just the present, like you mentioned, there's seasons, right? So when you have children, hey, I'm pregnant, I'm going to need to put some money aside for some diapers, right? And there's going to be things that I'm going to need for 6 months to a year to the next 3 years kind of a deal. Or let's take an even a smaller thing that happens, which is Christmas every year, right? Like we were talking at the beginning. Cool. Do I want to just be do I need to have one lump sum at Christmas time to be able to buy all my presents for somebody? Okay. Well, YNAB is going to actually help you to break it down instead of Target to think about, hey, if I want to spend $50 per person on these 10 people, well, that basically breaks down to about $40 to $50 per month to get me to Christmas, or, to get me to October so I can start going shopping when the sales all happen. So that's the one piece. I'm a big fan of YNAB. I'm a total YNAB nerd, but I 100% recognize that YNAB's not for everybody. And truly, it's not the tool that matters, as long as you have a process that works for you. So one of the other things that I do is I actually still utilize a good old Google Sheet. or an Excel file, right? But that's actually my starting point. And when I'm in that space, like I talked about with reworking my numbers, I go to my Google Sheet because that's where all of my outflow is happening. And I've got some formulas in there. And I'd love for anybody in your audience, if they're interested, I'm happy to send them the template because the formulas are in there. All you have to do is plug and play and you can pull up and, and I'm happy to even walk them through how it works. Like I shared it with one client and they looked at it and they were like, how do we have $2,000 extra at the end of every month? Or at least that's what this is telling us. And I was like, yeah. See, that's why the sheet is helpful because you start to write things down. And that's where, like I said, I love YNAB, but that Google Sheet is absolutely my foundation that I always go back to and lean on when things change and when numbers change.
I love it. We'll make sure that we include the link to connect with you or something like that. So that way people can get that spreadsheet, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
So it's like a two-step process. Then
Absolutely.
You have your Excel and then you have the YNAB. Do you have an affiliate link for YNAB?
I do. If people want to try, so YNAB it's a free trial for 30 days. And here again, if you want to contact me, if you buy into it, then you get a second free month and I get a free month. So I'm happy to share that as well.
Yes. So I'll include that in the comments or something somewhere in the description.
Somewhere. It'll be great. It'll be part of it.
I kind of know what I'm doing here. It's fine.
Here again, this is what we do. We were just talking before we officially started about taking action. That's the kicker, right? When you get to that point where you get so frustrated, and that's what happened with me, right? I'm really tired of seeing the same thing happen all the time and getting to the end of the month and going, where did all the money go? And if I don't know, and I just got tired of not knowing, and that was the catalyst for me to go, it's time to make a change.
Yeah. And I think also just little changes, obviously it's the compound effect. I referenced Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, probably every day of my life, but that's really what it is. It's just the little things every day that add up. So when you're updating YNAB and your Excel and all of that, do you do that every week, every day, every month? How often are you doing that to stay on top of everything?
So the Excel document specifically, that only gets updated when there's a change in what's incoming or in what's outgoing. So the change recently for us was the basement remodel. So we got a second mortgage. So we have this new added bill that's going to be there a while. Let's play with the numbers. So that's the Excel file got updated. That also meant that YNAB gets updated. Now, YNAB, let me just define it a little better. The Excel file is specifically just tracks what's going in, what's going out at a one-time basis, right? Like that's why I only do it when there's a change. YNAB, I use all the time. What that means is when I get paid and my husband gets paid, so we get paid about every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I'm going in and, hey, look, I have all this money. Fabulous. I'm a total nerd. This is where my nerd comes out, right? Got it on video, y'all. So this is where my total nerdness comes out, though, because this is like literally my two favorite times of the month are when I get to sit down in YNAB and take this chunk of money and go some here and some here and some here and some here. It's kind of hilarious, but it's the organization. It's me. So Dave Ramsey will define it, and actually YNAB defines it in the same way. Every dollar has a job. I'm telling my money where to go. My money doesn't just get to go, fly over here, right? So I'm actually telling it where to go. So that's why that's an every 2 week where I'm assigning that money. But then, and with YNAB, you can do it 2 ways, but essentially you need to have a way with where you're tracking your expenses. Think about it like a checkbook. That's really all that YNAB is. It's a checkbook, but it also gives you, hey, I want my money to go here. So when it comes out, I have to make sure that that's going in, right? So I'm either manually entering that transaction or it's connected to my bank account and or my credit cards, wherever I'm spending the money, and it's going in for me, but then I'm connecting it. So like, hey, I have $100 in groceries and I went to Meijer and now I spent $27.28 on groceries. I no longer have $100 in groceries, and it does that for me. I don't have to think about it anymore. Oh, I don't have as much over there. No, it just tells me how much I have.
When I think one of the things to get started too, is just writing it down or putting in an Excel, something before you even say this is the budget, like figure out where is your money going at the end of the month and just take maybe a month and keep track of all those receipts. I'm like a little old lady. I get my receipt every time. I'm like, they're like, do you want a receipt? I'm like, I sure do.
But you're absolutely right. That's the starting point. If you don't know where your money is going, then you're going, it's a free for all. And sorry, apparently I'm a dancer and a singer. It's great. This is what I used to do in the classroom with my kids, but that's the case, right? Is if it really boils down to who's making the decision about your money. Is your money making the decision, or are you making the decision? And if you don't know the answer to that question, it's probably your money doing whatever it wants to do. It's like a toddler.
Yeah. And here we could have a conversation about that. Oh my, yes. Yeah. Don't let your money be a toddler. You are the grown up in the situation, even if you don't feel like it.
Exactly.
And I feel like there's probably some people listening who say, okay, I know where my money's going. I can't take on another job. I can't cut anything else out. I feel like working with somebody like you, because you do coaching, would be really helpful, because sometimes it takes somebody outside of you to see it more objectively, because when you're in the overwhelm, it can be too hard. Does that sound pretty accurate?
You're absolutely right. You know, some of the people that I've worked with, they've made decisions and they recognize where they're at and they're just feeling at the end of their rope. And, you know, what I get to do is come in and remind them, you're not at the end of your rope. It's going to be okay. Right. So that's one of my favorite pieces. I know you're in a similar boat, where part of my favorite piece of coaching is the ability to encourage people and remind them they're not done, right? Wow. I want to come along with you, come alongside you, and be your biggest fan and your biggest cheerleader. And there's going to be some hard moments, right? Because when you're looking at your budget, and especially if it's tight like that and it doesn't feel like you have any wiggle room, okay, that's going to be a hard moment, but we're going to walk through that and talk through that together and hopefully find the plan, but develop it together. We're going to talk about options. I'm not going to tell you you have to do anything, because here again, you're the adult in the relationship with your money. You are the one who gets to make a decision, and you have to be able to think through that with your family and what's best for you and what can you do in the moment versus what can you do in 3 months, right? Things are constantly changing, but that's exactly part of the coaching process, is coming alongside and just helping you to think a little bit differently if you're interested in that.
Yeah. And I know that you and I have had so many conversations, and Rochelle, you have a great way of connecting to a person's heart, hearing their heart, hearing what they're thinking, and breaking it down into very doable steps. Because I know you've done it for me just as a friend in other areas outside of finance as well. So I hope that people take you up on that, because I know that money is a part of our lives. It always has been, always will be.
Absolutely.
Change the system. Figure it out.
We go back to bartering.
Yes, this is the way it is. And it doesn't have to debilitate people the way that it can at times, or own people, right? Mm-hmm. We're the adult. You get to come in kind of like the fun aunt. You're like, hey, like I'm here to like be a part of your life, and we're going to have some fun. And then I'm going to teach you some stuff, and then see ya. And then they have to go do it themselves.
Yes, absolutely. There are action steps, right? And there's things that I cannot do for you. So that's where the homework comes into play. That's where the accountability comes into play. But it's so much a matter, you know, the people that I get to work with, they're ready. They're ready to take the action. They're ready to do the work. And sometimes it's just you get so stuck and so in that tunnel mindset that you forget about things. And honest to goodness, so much a part of it for me is recognizing I came out of a poverty mindset. I came out of not thinking I was ever going to have enough. My life looks a little bit different than that today. I know that there's ways that it can be done. And if I can do it, I firmly believe in everybody else's ability.
So this is a little controversial. I hear some financial people say, don't ever get those expensive coffees, ever, not even once. And then some financial people say, so we know where you stand. Some people say, like, you need to get the expensive coffees sometimes because it doesn't really add up to a whole lot of money anyways. we know where you stand. Can you explain your position?
100%, 100%.
For those that are listening, she just held up her Starbucks coffee cup.
I had to let you know this is what I believe in. I 100% believe in doing something for yourself and helping yourself to feel better. I was going to say making yourself happy. It's not necessarily about happy, right? But it's giving yourself a little bit of that freedom. So that's actually, I think it actually came from Dave Ramsey, right? Is give yourself an allowance. My husband and I both get an allowance, and that allowance fluctuates kind of depending on other priorities. But with that allowance, we're not allowed to ask each other questions about where that money goes. It's essentially like cash, like here, have some money, go do what you want to do. But I firmly believe in that, even if it's $5 a week, because then, yeah, you can go get your coffee as long as it's under budget. But it helps you to just have that little bit of like, I have this little bit of thing that's mine and mine alone, and I don't have to share it with the kids and with the groceries and with the car maintenance and with the mortgage, right? It's yours. It's that little bit of like play and joy and pleasure. And I'm 100% believer in play and joy and pleasure in our lives.
I love it. One of my little things that I like to do, I go to Trader Joe's because they have some beautiful flowers that are like $5. Yeah. And if you get Astromeria flowers, they last forever. And so I sit them out, and it's just like a little bit of happy.
Yes.
You know? So I just think it just fills my heart when I look at them, like, oh, they're just so pretty, you know? So it can just be something very simple.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is there needs to be, like, within reason. You're not saying go get your $10 coffee every day. There's a balance. So we've come full circle today. It's all about balance.
Yes. And honestly, one of the mentors that I have, he actually uses the word harmony instead of balance, because I think it recognizes more the ebb and flow of things. Something about balance where it has to be equal. And I don't live in that place, right? That's why the harmony makes more sense, because harmony means that this thing can be happening here on like this high level, and this thing can be happening here, but that's actually okay as long as I've pulled them together and I've decided that those things are okay. And then they might flip, and I've again decided that those things are okay. But that's where you're absolutely right. The priorities, the conversation, the plan, all of it comes together to make out this harmony space where everything can live together without having to be fair, not fair, but without having to be equal.
So I always learn something from you every time we talk. And I love that, you know, the author is learning a better use of words. That's good. But I do agree. Balance can be too rigid. Harmony is more malleable. So I like that a lot. Yeah. Very good. So how can people get in touch with you, Rochelle?
Yes, absolutely. So Tasha's going to have my QR code for my LinkedIn page and for my Instagram page. Come follow me. I share content that's about leadership and development and personal growth, as well as financial things. As also, you'll see the puppies, you know, they'll come into play, or, you know, just email me straight, right? Tasha will have that in the show notes, rochelle.miller2@gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Rochelle, for being my friend and for being here and teaching me a better word to use than balance. I love it. I love you, girl.
Every little bit. Love you too. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Diary of a Dreamer. I hope you found the stories and tips shared today to be a source of motivation and strength. Remember, every challenge you face is a chance to grow and move closer to your dreams. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with anyone who could use a boost of encouragement.